Alright, welcome to the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about equations of straight lines. Now, as you can see, we have y is equal to mx plus c over here, which I'm sure all you are familiar with. It's called the gradient intercept form, and it has two components. The first component is the m over here. We talked about m in the previous couple of lessons. M is the gradient. Okay, so we all know what that means. We've talked about gradient in length by now. And c here represents the y-intercept of the graph. Okay, the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so when the x value is 0. Alright, there's the two components to every straight line. So let's look at a couple of questions now. These questions are asking for the gradient and y-intercept of all of these graphs. Okay, so tell me guys, what is the gradient of the first graph here? Well, the gradient is always the coefficient of x. So in this case, gradient m is equal to 3. And what's the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is the whole number next to it. So c, which we kind of use to represent y-intercept, is -4. Okay, fairly simple, right? So next part, let's keep going. What do you think the next question is? The gradient of the next question. Well, the gradient is the coefficient of x, which in this case is -2. And the y-intercept, or c I should say, y-intercept is 3/2. Alright, fairly simple so far. Okay, what about this next question though? What do you think the gradient of this one is? Well, a lot of you might be tempted to say gradient is just 4 because you see a 4 there, but that's not the whole story here. Because let me rewrite this equation and show you what's happening. Y is equal to 1/4 multiplied by x minus 2. Okay, so does that change your answer of what the gradient is? Well, it should. Because remember, gradient is the coefficient of x. What is a coefficient? Coefficient is the number that's multiplying x, right? What's the number that's multiplying x? It's actually 1/4 that's multiplying x. It's not just 4. So in this case, a gradient m would be equal to 1/4, and y-intercept is the same, what we always done. C is equal to -2. Okay, so it's the number that's multiplying x that's the important part. Next, D is this question. Okay, what do you guys think about this one? Well, again, a lot of you might be tempted to say gradient is 4. Okay, remember, it's not the number that comes first, it's the coefficient of x. Okay, I can just as easily rewrite this question as like this: y is equal to -3x plus 4. I'm just swapping those two around. Right, now what would you say the gradient is? The number that multiplies x. Right, even in the first equation, we can see the number that multiplies x, or even the second equation is the same, is -3. So gradient of this one is -3, and the y-intercept over here, y-intercept is 4. Okay, so it's a number that multiplies x, very important. So this one's the next question. So this is not even in gradient intercept form, right? It's in a completely new form. So what do you have to do? We can't just read the gradient of this straight away. So what you have to do is rearrange this into y is equal to mx plus c form, mx plus c. So that's how you find the gradient of these graphs. So pretty much you need to solve for y, use algebra to solve for y. So I'm going to do that. So let's take 2x to the other side by subtracting. So I have 3y is equal to 10 minus 2x. Okay, now how do I get rid of that 3? I need to divide both sides by 3. So divide this side by 3, divide this side by 3. So y is equal to, because 3 and 3 cancel, 10 minus 2x over 3. Okay, and what do you think the gradient is? Well, gradient m will equal to, this is the number that multiplies x, is -2. Okay, if you agree with me, you're wrong. You guys are wrong on this question, right? Because this is not the whole story, guys. I can keep going, and look what happens if I split up this graph. Split up the fraction, I mean. So I can write this fraction as 10/3 minus 2x over 3. Right? That's still the same thing. Both of these mean the same thing, because if I combine the fraction or split up the fraction, they're equal to the same thing. So let's look at this in the second scenario. What's the number that's multiplying x? Well, the number that's multiplying x is actually -2/3. It's the whole fraction, right? So where every time that you got a straight line that's being divided by a number, you have to split it up and then look at the gradient. You can't just look at the gradient up here straight away. Okay, so all that comes back to the fact that the gradient of this graph, m, gradient, is actually -2/3, because you have to split up the fraction. And likewise, the y-intercept is 10/3, not just 10. Okay, so the y-intercept, c, is equal to 10/3. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's your turn to have a go now. So have a go and find the gradient and y-intercept of these graphs, and we'll walk through it. Okay, I hope you had a chance to do it. Let's do it now. Okay, so the gradient of the first graph, as we can see, is the whole fraction. It's going to be m is equal to 2/3, and y-intercept is -4/3. Okay, hope you got that one. Next, okay, so similar question we talked about. We can split up the fraction. So I can write this as -x on 4 plus 2 over 4 if I split up the fraction, right? So then, what can I do here? Well, I can also write this as negative 1 over 4 times by x, right? So this is similar, very similar to what I did up here with this fraction, right? X over 4 I rewrote as 1 over 4 multiplied by x. So same logic I used to simplify this. So it's going to be x over 4 simplifies to negative 1 over 4 times x. Plus, well, we can't just leave 2 over 4 like that. We can simplify that fraction. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice. So plus half. Okay, so what is the gradient of this graph? Well, gradient is the number that multiplies x. M is equal to negative 1 over 4. And what's the y-intercept? Y-intercept is equal to half. All right, let's keep going. So obviously, you can't just say gradient in this case is negative 1 because there's the implied 1 there. Or you can't just say it's the y-intercept is 2. Right? You have to split up the fraction. Don't stress because I've seen a lot of students make this mistake. All right, so last one, yeah, so it's not in gradient intercept form, so you have to rearrange to make y the subject. So let's do it. So let's take 5x to the other side by subtracting. So I have negative 10y is equal to 20 minus 5x, okay? Now, what do you have to do to get rid of the negative 10? Well, we can divide both sides by negative 10. So divide by negative 10 and divide the right side by negative 10. On the left, negative 10 cancel, so you have y is equal to 20 minus 5x, or all of it divided by negative 10. Again, we have the same scenario where the graph is under a fraction, so you have to split up that fraction. So let's do it. Y is equal to 20 over negative 10 minus, because there's a minus here, 5x over negative 10. Okay, I hope you're with me so far. Let's keep simplifying. Y is equal to 20 divided by negative 10 is negative 2 minus, what's 5x and negative 10 simplified? Well, 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into negative 10, negative 2 times. So negative 2, very important. So what you're left with actually is x over negative 2, right, guys? X over negative 2. So pretty much this negative you can also write as y is equal to negative 2 minus, and in brackets you can take the negative up. It means the same thing. So minus x over 2. So what you're left with, guys, the last answer is y is equal to negative 2. Negative makes positive, x over 2. Okay, so we'll talk in the future more about why can't just write the negative at the top. But for now, just accept the fact that you can write this negative at the front like that, if you don't know. Okay, so then, guys, what's the gradient? Well, gradient, remember it's a number that's multiplying x, is 1 over 2, not just 2. So gradient is 1 over 2. And the y-intercept is the whole number, or the fraction is just by itself. So y-intercept is negative 2. Okay, so that's the general introduction to gradient intercept form. So now we're going to look at how to find the equations when they give us the coordinates, right? So let's read this question. This question says the gradient of find the equation of the line that passes through negative 3 and 5. Okay, passes through negative 3 and 5 and has a gradient of 3. Okay, so we have to find the line, okay? So again, we're going to talk about, what form did we talk about at the start? The y is equal to mx plus c form, right? And there's two things we need to find. Well, that's the two things we've been talking about thus far is we need to find the gradient and we need to find the y-intercept, okay? The first step is always, by the way, guys, find gradient, okay? Well, what's the gradient of this graph? It's really easy. The question already gave it to us. The gradient is equal to 3, right? The question literally told us, right? So so we can sub this 3 into our equation to have y is equal to 3x plus c. Okay, so find the gradient, step number 1. Well, step number 2, as you can probably guess, is find the value of c. Okay, find the value of c. How are you going to find the value of c? Well, you're going to use the coordinate negative 3 and 5. So sub negative 3 and 5 into this equation that we found earlier. Okay, so pretty much what is negative 3 and 5? Well, this coordinate is saying x is negative 3 and y is 5. Okay, that's pretty much what it's saying. So let's sub it in. So it's saying y is 5. So y, replace y with 5, is equal to 3 multiplied by what's x? Well, x is negative 3. So 3 times negative 3 plus c. And then just solve for c. So 5 is equal to 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 plus c. And then c is equal to, we'll take 9 to the other side, 14. 5 plus 9 is 14. Okay? So again, this is not the answer, right? We can't just leave this as the answer because what's the question asking for? Question's saying clearly find the equation of the line, right? So what's the equation of the line? Well, it's y is equal to, what's m? M is 3, so 3x. And what's c? C is 14, so plus 14. And that's the answer. Okay, I hope you got it. So let's look at another question now. Okay, have a read of this. Pause the video. If you think you can do it, have a go, right? If not, I'll do it now. So in this question, so again, we still use the y is equal to mx plus c form. But in this question, you'll notice step 1 is find m. So we know we have to find m. But in this question, you'll notice that m is not given to us straight away, right? All they're given us is two coordinates, negative 3, 5, and negative 1 and 11, right? But we know how to find m. We learned this in lesson number 2, I believe. So we know how to find m when we have two coordinates, right? We use the rule, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, rise over run, right? We learned this in lesson number 2. So let's do it. So label if you want. So there's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. You don't have to label. I'm just doing it in case you need it. So what's y2 minus y1? Well, it's 11 minus 5 over x2 minus x1. Negative 1, remember, minus negative 3. Minus, okay, right? Because you're subtracting a negative number. So let's do it. 11 minus 5 is 6. 1 minus 3, so 1, it's pretty much negative 1 plus 3. So it's going to be 6 over negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So gradient again in this case is 3. Okay, let's do it. So we have found 3. So what do? You sub 3 into m, like we always done. So y is equal to 3x plus c. Okay, so we found m and we subbed it in. So step number 2, you guessed it, is find the value of c. Well, how do you find the value of c? Which coordinate? Well, we have to sub a coordinate in, right? But which coordinate? This or this? Well, I'm going to say it doesn't matter. Just pick the one with the smallest numbers, okay? I'm going to pick negative 3 and 5. So what I'm going to say is sub negative 3 and 5. Again, you could do negative 1 and 11 if you wanted to. It doesn't matter, right? So you sub negative 3 and 5 into this question, okay? Into that equation, sorry. So pretty much this is saying this is x. So x is negative 3. 5 is y. So what's y? Y is 5 is equal to 3 multiplied by what's x? X is negative 3 plus c. Okay, and this solve from here. 5 is equal to negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 plus c. And take 9 to the other side. 5 plus 9 is equal to c. So c is equal to 14. Okay, again, we can't just leave this as the answer. Remember, the question is saying find the equation of the graph. So what's the equation of the graph? It's y is equal to 3x plus 14. Again, you can see the same graph. I did it on purpose, guys. The same graph as otherwise. So there's two different ways of finding the same sort of equation, right? One where they'll give you a gradient and a coordinate, or one where they'll give you two coordinates and you have to find it. Okay, so I hope you're with me. Now, there's a couple more questions, guys. Why don't you pause the video and have a go at these ones? So same thing, find the equation. All right. So I'm going to do this in a slightly different method, guys. I hope you got the answer. We'll get the same answer, but I'm just going to approach it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to use a different sort of equation to find it. Okay, and the equation I'm going to use is y minus y1 is equal to m in brackets x minus x1. Okay, this seems a bit complicated, but we should get the same answer. Okay, just follow me. Let's go through this. Okay, so you can see this equation also has the same thing, right? It has an m, right, and it has x1 and y1. Okay, so to use this equation, the method is largely the same. So step number 1 is find the value of m. Well, we already have m. The question is telling us it's negative 2. So m in this equation replace here, y minus y1 is equal to negative 2. So I'm replacing m with negative 2, x minus x1. Okay, so you find m. That's done. So step number 2, well, instead of, there's no c value, guys. There's no y-intercept here, right? So instead, step number 2 is literally just sub in coordinate. Sub in a coordinate, okay? So which coordinate do you guys, well, we only have one coordinate sub in, so it's negative 7, negative 10, so let's do it. So negative 7, negative 10, okay? Where do you sub this coordinate into though, okay? So it's no longer just x and y, so you don't sub it into this x and this y. So in this equation, what you sub it into, y is y1 and x1, okay? So pretty much in this formula, you have to do negative 7 is x1 and negative 10 is x2, okay? This is just another method of doing this. So let's sub it into our equation. So remember, y1 is negative 10. Right, so it should be y minus, in brackets, negative 10, see that makes a big difference, is equal to negative 2x minus, well, what's x1? Well, x1 is negative 7. Okay, so once you sub it in, well, you rearrange this into y is equal to mx plus c form. Okay, so, well, we have to add these two because it's negative, negative, so y plus 10 is equal to, and I'm going to, we can write this as x plus 7 like so. Okay, so I'm just making negative, negative, positive. So what do you do from here? Well, I can expand this bracket, so I can say y plus 10 is equal to negative 2x minus 14 if I just expand the brackets like so. And then to make, you just have to make y the subject. So to make y the subject, all I'm going to do is take 10 to the other side. So y is equal to negative 2x minus, so negative 14 minus 10 is negative 24. Okay, even if you did the other method, so the first method that we learned, you should have gotten the same answer. Okay, so again, I'm just showing you an alternate way. It does come up in questions sometimes. Another way to do this question. Okay, so this one we're going to do the next question again, and I'm going to use the new method that we learned. So y minus y1 is equal to m in brackets x minus x1. Okay, so let's do it. So what's the step number one is find m. What's the gradient? Well, it's not given to us here, so we have to find it. So we have to use the formula. M is equal to y2. y2 is negative 6 minus y1 is 3 over x2, which is negative 1, and x1, so yeah, and then x1 is negative 4 minus negative 4. Okay, y2, y1, x2, x1. Negative 6 minus 3 is negative 9 over negative 1. Well, minus minus will make a plus, so plus 4. So it's going to be negative 9 over positive 3. So gradient this time is negative 3. Okay, so let's do it. So what do? You sub negative 3 into m here. So you have y minus y1 is equal to negative 3, x minus x1. Okay, so then from here you sub in any coordinates. The next step was sub coordinate. Okay, we have a couple of options. Like I said, it doesn't matter which coordinate you sub in. It's the same thing either way. I'm going to pick negative 4 and 3 because it's smaller numbers. Okay, just pick the easiest coordinate, the coordinate with the easiest numbers. So sub negative 4 and 3. So negative 4 and 3 into this equation over here. So remember, this in this equation, it's x1 and y1, not x and y like we did in the previous method. So we sub it in. Y minus y1 is 3. So y minus 3 is equal to negative 3. X minus x1 is negative 4. So make sure every time you sub in a negative number, guys, or anything with more than one term, make sure you put brackets around it every time you're subbing in. It'll save you a lot of time and trouble. Okay, let's do it. So y minus 3 is equal to negative 3x plus 4, because minus minus makes positive. Y minus 3 is equal to negative 3x and then minus 12, because I just expand the brackets. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Okay, and then obviously take 3 to the other side by adding. Y is equal to negative 3x minus negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9. Okay, that's it. Simple as that, guys. Again, you should have gone the same answer even if you use the other method. Okay, so this is the answer to the question. Negative 3x minus 9. Okay, one last question for this lesson. Okay, so this time I'm giving you a graph. Okay, we have to find the equation of this line from a graph. Let's do it. Pause the video and have a go. Alright, I'll go through it. So again, in this question, it's nothing different, guys. Technically, they still gave us two coordinates. This coordinate is 0 and 5, and this coordinate is 3 and 0, right? They still gave us two coordinates, which means the method is the same. Okay, just to switch it up a bit, I'm going to go back to y is equal to mx plus c form. You guys can use either one. You can still use y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. Okay, you can use either method. Just to switch it up, I'm going to use this method. Okay, mx plus c. So step number one is obviously find m. So m is going to be x2 minus x1. So if you look carefully, I'll label these just in case. So we can say this is, we'll say this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Doesn't matter. This could be x2, y2. This could be x1, y1. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can label it whatever order you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, so y2 in my case is 0. Minus y1 is 5. Divided by x2 is 3. Minus x1 is 0. Okay, so you have negative 5 at the top over 3. So negative 5 on 3 is your gradient. Okay, it's fine. It's okay to have fractions as your gradients. Okay, so then we'll sub this into this coordinate, this equation. Y is equal to negative 5 over 3x. Or you can write it as, you can write it like this. You can write it as negative 5x over 3. Same thing. It doesn't matter. Remember when we first talked about gradient. Plus c. So now we have to find c. How do you find c? Well, you sub in a coordinate. What coordinate you want to sub in? I'll pick the smallest one, 3 and 0. It's a smaller number. So I'll sub 3 and 0 into this equation over here. So then, again, remember when you're using this equation, it's not x1, y1. It's x and y that you're subbing in. So what is y? Y is going to be 0 is equal to negative 5 multiplied by 3 this time over x, over 3 plus c. Okay, so you have 0 is equal to negative 15 over 3 plus c, or you can take, and then 0 is equal to negative 5 plus c. Okay, simple, so c is equal to 5. Okay, so what's the final answer? Y is equal to negative 5x over 3 plus 5. Now, some of you might have noticed, right? Some of you probably might not even have done this calculation. Because what is C, guys? C is the y-intercept, right? C is the y-intercept. So as you can see in the graph, they technically gave us the y-intercept, right? The y-intercept is 5, which is what we got in the equation. We got 5 as the y-intercept. So technically, you didn't really even need to do this calculation if you notice that, well, the question already gave you the y-intercept. So you can just replace from here, right? So from this step, when you found the gradient, from here you can just go, okay, I know my y-intercept is 5. So I'm just going to write it as negative 5x over 3 plus 5. You could have done that. It's absolutely fine. Okay, so this is the finding equation of straight line. I hope you understood. Okay, I'll see you next lesson.